I'm going to talk about a simple instructional practice that can transform the classroom and create equity for all students. It is the explicit use of language objectives in lesson planning and implementation. And you might wonder, how is this a social justice issue? Well, actually, creating equity and access for all students is a very strong social justice issue to be addressed. We all learn language through the 4 domains of speaking, reading, listening, and writing. This is important to understand because students express their knowledge through their language domains. Explicitly teaching students how to own the language objectives by posting them, stating them, referring to them throughout lessons helps them to acquire skills through the medium of language. The typical classroom in the United States is designed to serve monolingual students, but that is not representative of the children in our classrooms, and there are now an estimated 4.9 million children in the United States public schools learning the English language. Language objectives give students ownership of the grade level content. Ownership is access. Access is understanding. The system we work within in the United States public schools was designed through an English-dominant lens, but the students in our classrooms are diverse, multilingual, and multicultural, and we must embrace this. Language objectives give students access to the content. The content objective is what the students will learn, and the language objective is how the students will learn through one of the 4 language domains. Having a language objective encourages students to understand that there is a language expectation, and there are different ways to express themselves through the domains of reading, speaking, listening, and writing. Posting learning targets or objectives are common practice in the classroom. Typically, they are posted on the board and not really referred to. Language objectives are meant for the students and should be owned by them. They are the anchor in the lesson. Explicitly teaching students which language domains they will use to learn the content helps them acquire the language and the skill. And without this access to grade level content, we oppress our students. This is an example of an international school in China. Students are allowed to use Google Translate and write in their first language as well as the target language, which is English, to express their ideas. Here you see that the students are also given some visuals for the language objectives so that they can identify which of the language domains they will be using in the lesson. So as I said, when students own the language objective, their skills develop. This is my Spanish immersion class from 2 years ago. These 3 students are 2nd and 3rd language learners, speaking English and Swahili, English and Korean, and Portuguese. They are able to stay in the target language because of the explicit teaching of the content through the language objectives. You can see also that they refer to the anchor chart on the wall from the lesson that they had learned, where they used their speaking domain to learn the shapes in Spanish.
¿Y qué son las figuras geométricas? Enséñale. ¿Qué son?
Este es rombo, este es cuadrado, trapezoide, hexágono, y rombo.
Excelente.
Y
Triángulo. Gracias por ser tan buenas amigas con Arthur, el nuevo amigo. Muy bien, chicas.
Putting the skills into practice, this is an example of when we taught students from the beginning of the school year about the different language domains and how to access the content through them. They were able to sustain the content when we needed to talk about important topics. Once the students own the language objectives, you can teach through that medium with supports for each domain, and using total physical response, sentence stems, vocabulary lists, images, and visuals, You can show examples of planning through language objectives, and this was following the protests after the George Floyd murder. My kindergarten team planned a social-emotional lesson on how to talk about race. The English teacher and I co-taught the lesson so that the students could express themselves in either English or in Spanish. We listened to stories about peaceful protest in both languages. We talked about racism and what kids can do to stop it. Giving the students language frames and modeling repeating vocabulary terms from the text helped scaffold the lesson using the language domain as an anchor. Having started the practice of explicit language objective teaching from the beginning of the year, the students were able to understand the content and share. All students had a voice. Anchoring the lesson in the language objective allows students to express themselves in their language or circumlocute in the target language. It increases student buy-in and engagement and helps students to understand perspectives and feel included in the learning without language barriers. The planning of language objectives provides teachers the opportunity to prepare the supports that are critical for students to attain the outcome. Students understand what they are striving to achieve, and language objectives support students in closing their gaps. Language researcher Dr. Jose Medina of Educational Solutions says, if we write a content objective without a language objective, it's like asking kids to find a target in the dark. Language objectives are the linguistics equity part of the lesson planning process. Thank you so much for watching.